previous segment, we considered the important role that political and legal institutions might play in responding to the various starting positions that we find ourselves in. In this segment, we will consider several other important roles for political and legal institutions, all of which also stem from facts about the human condition. Here's a very different kind of consideration, one that doesn't focus on our different starting places, but on what we are like. Human beings who live in close proximity to each other might not always treat each other well or fairly. This can lead to violence and instability. Beginning with Thomas Hobbes, but before that as well, philosophers have noted that one role for the state, for political institutions, is to help us keep the peace. We are social animals. We like to live and work and play with each other. But we also are capable of disagreement, conflict, and violence. We don't always get along. On this view, one purpose of political institutions is to help minimize our conflicts in the maximally peaceful and welfare-promoting way, helping us to resolve disagreements rationally, productively, and peacefully, and to be able to gain the benefits of society without the subsequent war and chaos that interaction can bring. So political institutions can help with all of the following: limiting freedom if that freedom is being used inappropriately to hurt other people, for example. Helping us get out of the state of nature, as Hobbes and others talk about it. Eliminating the need for vendetta and revenge justice. Preventing people from harming each other. Preventing stronger or larger groups from dominating weaker or smaller groups. So the state can play a role in helping do all of these things. A related set of concerns stem not so much from keeping the peace and avoiding violence, but about working together to solve the most urgent problems that we, some community of human beings, face. So here's another fact about the human condition. Human beings don't all agree on what to do, and there may be collective action problems that we need to coordinate and work together to solve, and what are called public goods that we need to work together to produce and sustain. These might be essential for our survival. The idea of a collective action problem is one that we'll discuss in more detail later in the course. The basic idea is straightforward. The term collective action problem describes the situation in which multiple individuals would all benefit from taking a certain action or certain kind of action, but that action has an associated cost with it, making it implausible that any one individual can or will undertake and solve it alone. The rational choice is then to undertake this as a collective action, the cost of which is shared. This kind of problem often arises with respect to the provision of what are called public goods. A public good is a good that is both non-excludable and non-rivalrous. A good is non-excludable if individuals cannot be effectively excluded from using it. A good is non-rivalrous if use by one individual does not reduce availability to others. So some examples of public goods include clean air, Earth's atmosphere, knowledge and information, national defense, flood prevention systems, and street lighting. Of course, for some of these, we could make an effort to limit the use by some people, but it's not easy. One problem with public goods, as a result, is the free rider problem, in which people not paying for the good may continue to access it. So in this sense, I can ride freely on the backs of your efforts. Another related problem is the tragedy of the commons, where consumption of a shared resource by individuals acting in their individual and immediate self-interest diminishes or destroys the resource. Earth's climate might be an example of this. We all share the Earth and its human being hospitable environment, but by taking certain actions focused on our short-term self-interest, it's easier to drive than to walk, for example. We use up this resource. So, another purpose for government is to help solve collective action problems, to provide and sustain public goods, and to prevent the free rider problem, perhaps through mandatory taxation and joint finance of public good projects, and by preventing the tragedy of the commons by imposing limits on use. Doing all of this might be important for improving welfare or happiness, or for promoting justice, equality, or autonomy. All of these different rationales. A final reason we might want to state stems from the fact that human beings are not omniscient. We do not know everything. And for any one person, there may be much about which that person is ignorant. This fact motivates what philosophers might call epistemic reasons for having a state. Epistemic as a word is derived from epistemology, which is the study of knowledge, its promotion, and what constitutes justified belief. Because human beings are not omniscient, we don't know everything, solving urgent problems may require a division of labor. And making good decisions as a community may require us to learn from each other in various ways. This might be essential for promoting happiness and for achieving justice. One thing we see in this regard is the use of elected representatives to make informed decisions. So there are many reasons to think that systems of electoral representation will make decisions that bring about good outcomes. Representatives are solely devoted to the task of making law and policy. They have time to research, consult experts, consult constituents, deliberate, and debate. And in many places, they have considerable staffs of people helping them, so they can come to have a more informed opinion about what needs to be done, which problems are most urgent. And representatives are in a position to make decisions holistically, weighing trade-offs, making compromises when necessary, balancing competing interests, and having a sense of relative priority and budget limitations. So this allows for the views of individual citizens to be refined and enlarged, in James Madison's phrase. A second role for the state might be to figure out ways to harness and use the expertise that some members of our community have with respect to particular issues. So we might face a problem that requires technical or scientific knowledge, but we might not have that knowledge ourselves. Perhaps we want to know how much lead can safely be in our drinking water, and how to detect the levels of lead in some body of water. In many places, there will be experts in charge of helping policymakers to make these decisions. In the United States, for example, there are what are called administrative agencies, such as the Food and Drug Administration or the Environmental Protection Agency. These agencies use scientists and other experts to help make these policy decisions. In this segment and the previous one, I've identified several different reasons for thinking that facts about the human condition, facts about our situation, may give rise to moral reasons for needing a state. In the lectures to come, we will examine some of these reasons in more detail and question whether they make sense or whether we should consider others.